You ever ruin a friendship in less than 30 seconds? Because I died in the night he came back from the longest flight of his life. And the worst part? I did it sober, with every nerve in my body begging me to shut up, but my heart stupid, reckless, desperate made me speak. His name was Adrian. Captain Adrian Hale. 32, impossibly handsome, the kind of man who could silence a crowded room just by stepping into it. He had the look of someone who belonged in the sky. Tall, lean, a smile that could disarm turbulence itself. I'd known him for years, but only as a friend, maybe a brother in another life. And yet, every time I picked him up from the airport, every time his shoulders sagged from hours above the clouds, I wanted to be the place he could finally land. That night, New York was humming. The September air was heavy but alive, like the city was holding its breath for me. I'd cleaned my apartment twice, set out wine I couldn't afford, even left the window open so the smell of the rain-soaked streets below would drift in. Stupid, I know. But when you're about to confess something that could ruin you, you do whatever you can to trick yourself into feeling brave. He knocked at the door just after midnight. The sight of him nearly undid uniform still crisp, hair mussed from hours of travel, eyes bloodshot but shining with the kind of exhaustion that made him human. He stepped in, dropped his bag by the couch, and gave me that smile. That goddamn smile. "Missed me, Danny?" he teased, voice low and rough from days of talking to flight attendants and passengers. I wanted to say, "More than you'll ever know." Instead, I poured him a glass of wine and said, "Someone has to make sure you're still alive." We talked for hours. About nothing, about everything. The way passengers always think the turbulence is worse than it is, the new bar he swore I'd love in Queens, the fact that he hadn't slept in 36 hours but still couldn't stop laughing at my bad jokes. And somewhere between his laughter and the clink of glasses, I realized it was now or never. So I told him how I'd been in love with him since the first time he called me at 2 a.m. from a hotel in Denver just to complain about the soap. I told him how every time he walked away through security, I prayed he'd come back not just to the city, but to me. I told him that the space he filled in my life wasn't just as a friend, it was as everything. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your heart try to crawl out of your throat. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me with that impossible gaze, like he could see the pieces of me I just handed over, fragile and raw. Then he set his glass down, leaned back and said, "Danny, you're a beautiful dream, but I don't know if you're my destination." Dream, not destination. I laughed, because what else was I supposed to do? Cry? Beg? Instead, I just let the words burn holes in me while I smiled like they didn't. And he, God help Mayhay, reached over, touched my hand, and looked at me like he hated himself for saying it. The city outside was alive, buzzing with sirens and headlights and stories that weren't mine. But in that apartment, it felt like the world had collapsed into two people sitting too close, too far apart. And that was just the beginning. Silence can break you faster than words. It clung to the room like fog, thick and suffocating, and I swear I could hear every single beat of my heart crashing in my ears. Adrian didn't move, and I sat there like a fool with my hand trembling under his. His palm was warm, steady, while mine was cold, clammy, desperate. I should have pulled away, should have stood up, made some dumb joke, shoved this confession into the abyss where it belonged. But I couldn't. "Adrian," I whispered, my throat dry, "that's all you've got to say? That I'm just a dream?" His eyes softened, but not the way I wanted them to. Not with the hunger I'd hoped for. Not with the spark that could have set me on fire. No, his gaze was apologetic, careful, measured, the way he looked at turbulence reports before deciding whether to divert a flight. He was calculating the safest landing, and it wasn't me. "Danny," he said, his voice carrying the weight of exhaustion and something else I couldn't name. "You don't understand. My life isn't. It isn't steady. I'm gone half the time, and when I'm back, I'm just a mess trying to remember who I am on the ground. I can't be what you think I can." I didn't ask for steady. I shot back, louder than I intended. I didn't ask for perfect. My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. I just asked if you feel anything. "Do you?" His silence was the answer. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the worst kind of maybe, the kind that kept hope alive when it should have been buried. He rubbed his face with his free hand, sighed like a man who'd been carrying the sky on his shoulders, and finally whispered, "I do, but it scares the hell out of me." The honesty cut sharper than any rejection could. I felt my chest collapse inward, like the walls were folding on top of me. "You scare easy for a captain," I said, trying to force a laugh, but it came out jagged. That made him smile, faint, broken, but real. He leaned back, let go of my hand, and that loss of contact was worse than anything he'd said. He looked out the window instead, at the city sprawled beneath us like an endless runway. "Dreams are beautiful, Danny," he said quietly, "but destinations, those are final. And I don't know if I'm ready to choose." I wanted to scream, to shake him, to tell him that life wasn't about certainty. It was about falling literally, painfully, messily into the arms of someone who'd catch you. But I didn't, because maybe deep down I knew he was right. So instead, I drained the rest of my wine, stood up, and muttered, "You should sleep. I'll take the couch." He didn't argue. He just looked at me with those storm-colored eyes, as if he wanted to stop me but didn't have the courage. And well, I walked away because it was the only thing left to do. The couch was too small. Or maybe I was too restless. I stared at the ceiling until dawn cracked the sky, every tick of the clock driving the confession deeper into my chest like a knife twisted for fun. When I finally dragged myself up, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. His bag was gone. The uniform jacket that had been draped over the chair gone. The only proof he'd been there at all was the half-empty glass of wine still on the coffee table. A ghost of a night I wanted to erase and keep forever. He'd left without saying goodbye. And that should have been the end. Except it wasn't. Because 2 weeks later, Adrian was back in New York. And this time, he called. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail just to punish him, or maybe to protect myself. But the second his name lit up my screen, I caved. "Danny," he said, his voice low, hesitant. "Can we talk?" My chest tightened. "About what?" "More dreams versus destinations." He exhaled, frustrated. "Don't do that." "Don't do what?" I snapped. "Don't act like you ripped my heart out and left me to stitch it back together on the couch while you vanished before sunrise?" There was silence. Then softer, "I'm sorry." 2 words. That's all it took to unravel me again. Against my better judgment, I said, "Come over." This time, he didn't come in uniform. He wore jeans and a hoodie, casual enough to make him look younger, almost vulnerable. He carried no bag, no shadow of the sky trailing him. Just himself. And when he stepped through the door, he didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just stood there like a man who'd been circling the runway for days, finally deciding whether to land. "I shouldn't have left like that," he admitted, voice heavy. I panicked. "You don't say," I muttered, crossing my arms. "I mean it, Danny. I didn't know how to handle what you said. I've spent years telling myself I couldn't. I shouldn't." He trailed off, rubbed the back of his neck, and looked at me with raw honesty. "But I can't stop thinking about you." The words hit me harder than any rejection. "Then why make me feel like a fool?" I asked, softer now. "Because I don't want to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. Too late. He flinched at that, but instead of walking away like last time, he stepped closer. Just 1 step, but it was enough to set my pulse racing. "Danny," he whispered, his eyes burning with something dangerous. "If I touch you right now, I don't know if I'll be able to stop." And God help me, I wanted him to. The space between us evaporated. His hand lifted, hovered near my cheek, then finally cupped it. The warmth of his touch was enough to make my knees threaten mutiny. His thumb brushed across my skin, gentle but electric, and suddenly the world outside didn't exist. "You're not a dream," I breathed, my voice trembling. "You're real. And I want you." He groaned softly, like the confession tore something open inside him. Then his lips crashed onto mine. It wasn't careful. It wasn't hesitant. It was hunger and relief and years of denial breaking all at once. His mouth tasted like the coffee he'd downed hours earlier, bitter and sharp, but beneath it was something intoxicating him. My Adrian. I clutched at his hoodie like I was afraid he'd disappear again, and he pulled me against him, one hand tangled in my hair, the other gripping my waist. Every part of me burned. Every fear, every doubt, drowned under the tide of him finally letting go. When we broke apart, both of us gasping, he rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "You terrify me, Danny, because you feel like home." And for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe just maybe home was what he wanted too. But love isn't simple. Not with Adrian. Not with the life he lived. The following weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Coffee at dawn before his flights, texts at midnight from hotel rooms across the country, kisses hidden in the corners of my apartment like secrets we were too scared to let the world see. He made me laugh in ways no one else could. He made me feel wanted, cherished, alive. But he never stayed. Every time the airport swallowed him, I felt the old ache return, the fear that I was just a layover, not the destination. And no matter how tightly he held me before leaving, no matter how often he whispered, "I'll come back," I couldn't silence the question screaming inside me. When will I be enough for you to stay? The breaking point came one rainy night in November. He'd been grounded for a week because of storms, which meant more time with me. I thought it was a gift, a chance to finally feel like something permanent. We'd cooked dinner, shared a bottle of wine, and curled up on the couch. For once, he wasn't the captain. He was just Adrian, messy-haired, laughing, his hand warm in mine. And then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, his smile faltering. I caught the look before he could hide it. Guilt. "Who's that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "No one," he said too quickly, slipping the phone back into his pocket. I sat up. "Don't lie to me. It's complicated," he muttered, looking away. "Complicated." My chest tightened. "Adrian, I've given you every piece of me. If you're with someone else, I'm not." He cut in firm. Then softer. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I felt the ground crack beneath us. Because love, real love, isn't complicated. It's terrifying, yes. Messy, absolutely. But not complicated. Not unless someone makes it that way. And I realized, sitting there with his hand no longer holding mine, that maybe I wasn't the only one he was afraid to lose. That was the night everything began to unravel. Rain has a way of making silence heavier. The November storm rattled against the windows, drowning out the city's usual hum, but inside my apartment the quiet between us was deafening. Adrian sat there with his phone burning a hole in his pocket, his eyes fixed on the glass of wine he hadn't touched. His shoulders, those broad, steady shoulders that carried 1,000 passengers through the sky, looked small. Smaller than I'd ever seen them. I should have let it go. Should have taken a breath, trusted him, reminded myself that love isn't built in a day or a month or even a year. But instead, I said the one thing I'd been biting back for weeks. "Am I just your layover?" His head snapped up, eyes flashing with something raw. Hurt, anger, maybe both. "Don't do that," he said quietly, almost pleading. "Don't what?" "Don't ask the question that's been eating me alive since the night I told you how I felt." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I can't keep pretending I'm fine with you dropping in and out of my life like some flight path. I need to know if this is real, Adrian. Or if I'm just the comfort you come back to when the sky gets too lonely. He closed his eyes, exhaled slowly, and I swear the air in the room grew colder. "You think I don't care about you?" he whispered. "I think you don't know what to do with me." I shot back. That landed. His jaw tightened, his fingers curling into fists against his knees. For a long moment he didn't answer. And then, finally, he said, "You're right." The words gutted me. "Danny," he went on, softer now, "you are the one thing in my life that feels real. Not the uniforms, not the endless airports, not the fake smiles I give passengers when I want to collapse. You're the closest thing to steady I've ever had." Then why does it feel like I'm the one chasing you? His silence told me everything. The storm outside grew louder, as if the universe itself wanted to drown us out. I stood, pacing the room because sitting still felt impossible. My hands shook, my chest heaved, and every word I'd buried for months came clawing out. I'm not asking you to give up flying. I'm not asking you to be something you're not. I just need to know if I'm worth landing for. Because if I'm not, Adrian, then you need to stop kissing me like I am. The room fractured with those words. He stood too, closing the distance between us in 2 strides, and grabbed my arms, not rough, but desperate. Don't say that, he hissed, eyes blazing. Don't you dare think you're not worth it. Then prove it, I cried. My voice broke, and tears I didn't want to show spilled over. Prove it. Because right now I feel like a goddamn dream you're too scared to wake up from. His grip loosened, his face crumpled. And for the first time since I'd known him, Adrian Hale, the man who could navigate hurricanes and command respect at 30,000 feet, looked utterly lost. I don't know how, he whispered. We didn't sleep that night. Not together, not apart. He stayed, sitting on the edge of the bed while I curled under the sheets, my back to him. Neither of us said another word. The storm eventually eased, but inside me, the chaos only grew. By morning, he was gone again. Days passed, then weeks. He texted. I ignored most of them. When I did answer, it was curt, clipped, the kind of replies you give someone you don't trust yourself around. I hated myself for it, hated the coldness, but it was the only way to protect the mess of a heart I was dragging through December. Then came Christmas. New York sparkled under a blanket of snow, the streets lined with lights, strangers smiling at each other as though magic was stitched into the air. I tried to lose myself in Ithet chocolate at Bryant Park, ice skating with friends, laughing too loud to cover the ache. But every carol, every glow of warm windows against the winter dark, reminded me of him. On Christmas Eve, I walked past LaGuardia just as a wave of flights landed. I don't know why. Maybe some cruel part of me wanted to torture myself with the thought of him stepping off one of those planes, scanning the crowd for me. But I didn't wait. I kept walking. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Merry Christmas, Danny. I miss you. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then I tossed the phone aside, buried myself in the couch, and whispered to the empty room, Then why aren't you here? New Year's came and went. Still no Adrian. By mid-January, I'd almost convinced myself it was over, that I was better off with the silence than with the constant ache of waiting. I threw myself into work, into friends, into anything that didn't remind me of the way he'd held me like I was his lifeline. And then because life has a sick sense of humor, he showed up. Not with a text, not with a call, no warning at all. Just a knock on my door at 3 a.m. When I opened it, there he was. Snow dusted his hair, his jacket half unzipped, eyes red-rimmed not from exhaustion but from something else, something heavier. Adrian, I breathed, my chest clenching. Don't slam the door, he said quickly, voice breaking. I should. I know. But please, don't. I didn't. Because no matter how much he hurt me, I couldn't bring myself to shut him out. He stepped inside, pacing the floor like a man unraveling. His hands shook, his breath uneven, and I realized this wasn't the confident captain everyone saw. This was Adrian stripped bare. I screwed up, he said, words tumbling out. I thought I could keep my distance, thought I could protect you from the chaos of my life. But I can't, because every mile I fly, every city I land in, I look for you. Every hotel room feels empty without you. And the truth is, he stopped, choking on the words. Adrian, I whispered, my throat tight. The truth is what? He met my eyes, and in them I saw everything he'd been too afraid to admit. The truth is you're not my dream, he said, stepping closer. You're my destination. The words shattered me. I should have been furious. Should have told him it was too late, that he didn't get to drop this confession at my feet after months of silence. But instead, my knees went weak, and all I could do was whisper. Then why did it take you so damn long to say it? Because I'm a coward, he admitted, voice raw. Because I thought flying was the only place I belonged. But then I realized, what's the point of flying if you don't have somewhere to land? My chest broke open. Every ounce of anger, every sleepless night, every unanswered question melted under the weight of those words. And when he reached for me, I didn't pull away. The kiss was different this time. Not hungry, not desperate, but steady. Sure. Like he was finally choosing, finally landing where he was meant to. His hands cradled my face, his breath warm against mine, and I let myself believe, really believe, that maybe love wasn't about being perfect, but about showing up. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine and whispered, "I can't promise I'll always know how to do this, but I can promise I'll never walk away again." For the first time in months, I let myself smile. "You better not," I murmured. "Because if you do, I swear I'll hijack your damn plane." He laughed. The sound cracking opened the room like sunlight. And in that moment, with snow falling outside and his arms around me, I finally understood what home felt like. But life has a way of testing even the strongest promises. Because love wasn't the end of our turbulence. It was only the beginning. If love were only about the promises we make in the dark, it would be easy. But promises, like planes, are tested not when the sky is clear but when the storm hits. For a while, things between us were good. Too good, maybe. Adrian stayed longer in New York that winter, grounded more often than not by storms and mechanical delays. He cooked breakfast in my kitchen, badly burnt pancakes, runny eggs, but it didn't matter. We laughed. We touched more freely, not as though we were afraid of the truth anymore. He even left his uniform jacket hanging in my closet once, like a flag staked on new territory. But then spring came, and with it, the skies called him back. His schedule turned brutal. Coast-to-coast flights, overnight hauls, days when the only proof he existed in my world was a text at 3 a.m. from some anonymous hotel room. I told myself I could handle it, that love meant patience, trust, endurance. But then came the call. It was April, a clear morning. My phone buzzed, and when I answered, all I heard was static at first, then Adrian's voice, tight, panicked. "Danny, I don't have long." There was the line cracked. "Emergency landing. We're safe, but and then nothing." The silence after that nearly killed me. Hours crawled by before the news broke. A mechanical failure over Chicago, a narrow miss. No fatalities. Passengers shaken but alive. The captain hailed as a hero. Adrian. Relief nearly buckled my knees. But underneath it, terror. Because it hit me, brutally and suddenly, loving a man who belonged to the sky meant living every day with the possibility that the sky could take him from me. When he finally came back to New York, I expected him to fall into my arms, to let me hold him until the fear left his bones. But instead, he shut down. He paced the apartment for hours, silent, restless, like a man caged. When I finally begged him to talk, he snapped. "You don't get it, Danny." His voice shook the walls. "Every time I climb into that cockpit, I don't know if I'll make it back. And now now you're in my head when I need to be clear. Do you understand what that means? You're a distraction. You could cost lives." The words felt like knives. "A distraction?" I whispered, my chest hollowing out. "Is that what I am to you?" He dragged his hands down his face, groaning. "No, you're everything. And that terrifies me." "Then let me in," I begged. "Don't shut me out because you're scared." "I don't know how," he roared, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to love you without risking everything else." And just like that, the storm between us swallowed the room. We didn't speak for days. He stayed at my place but moved like a ghost, his touches gone, his laughter erased. I wanted to reach for him, but every time I tried, I felt the walls he was building higher, brick by brick. Until one night he left. No note, no bag left behind. Just gone. And I thought that was it. That was the end. But endings are tricky things. Sometimes they're just the middle in disguise. 2 weeks later, I was at the bar we used to haunt, drowning in whiskey and self-pity, when I heard the door slam. And there he was, Adrian. Not in uniform, not polished. He looked wrecked, beard grown in, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped like he hadn't slept in days. But when he saw me, something lit in his face. Desperation. "Danny," he said, breathless. "Don't move." I froze, glass halfway to my lips. He crossed the room, ignoring every stare, and dropped to his knees right there in front of me. The bar went silent. "I can't do it without you," he said, voice hoarse. "I thought I could, that keeping you at a distance would make me a better captain, a better man. But all it did was break me. You're not a distraction, you're the reason I make it through the sky at all. You're the place I land. You're it, Danny. You're the damn destination." My chest cracked open. Tears blurred my vision, spilling before I could stop them. "Adrian," I whispered, my hands shaking. "You can't just disappear and then, I know." He cut in fierce. "I know I've been a coward. I know I hurt you. But I swear to you, if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that you are home. Not a dream. Not a layover. Home." The bar blurred away. It was just him and me, his hands clutching mine, his eyes begging for forgiveness. And God help me, I gave it. Because love isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing to rebuild. So I pulled him up, kissed him hard enough to erase the weeks of silence, and whispered against his lips, "Then don't you ever leave again." "I won't," he swore. "Not unless you're coming with me." And he meant it. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. We fought. We stumbled. He had nights where fear gnawed at him, where I had to hold him through nightmares of engines failing and skies collapsing. I had days where doubt crept back in, where I asked myself if I was strong enough to love a man who lived with one foot in the clouds. But we tried. God, we tried. He started leaving notes in my jacket pockets before flight, small things like "Be right back" or "You're my ground." He called more, not less, even if it was just to hear me breathe. And one night, standing by the window with the city lights spread below us, he took my hand and said, "I'm done running from this. From you. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes, you're worth it." And for once, I believed him completely. Months later, he asked me to meet him at the airport. When I got there, nervous and confused, I found him waiting not at the gate, but outside, security uniform crisp, tie perfect, but eyes soft in that way only I ever got to see. In his hand was a small box. "Before you panic," he said, smirking at my wide-eyed stare. "No, it's not that. Not yet." I laughed, the sound shaky, but my heart pounding. He opened the box to reveal a key. "Danny," he said, his voice steady, "I don't know where the sky will take me tomorrow, but I know where I want to come back to every single time. This is me asking you. Let me land with you. Always." The terminal buzzed with life around us, but I swear the world stood still. "Yes," I whispered, tears spilling. "Always." He pulled me into his arms, right there in the middle of the airport, and kissed me like the final piece had clicked into place. Passengers cheered, cameras flashed, but none of it mattered, because in that moment, I wasn't just a dream. I wasn't just waiting. I was his destination. And maybe that's all love really is. Not perfection, not certainty, but the courage to land, even when the sky tries to keep you. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.